They're being predatory to elderly folks who are trusting their life savings on a half-truth, a mistruth, or a complete flat-out lie, and being charged in most cases many times what they should be paying.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for November 8th through 15th, 2022, while supplies last. This week we've secured a shipment of backdated silver maples, including full mint-sealed monster boxes from years prior to 2022, and they are available at $8.50 over spot. The silver maple, made by the Royal Canadian Mint, is 4/9 fine and was the first bullion coin minted to that exemplary purity. They are one of the most recognized bullion coins in the world and come in tubes of 25 and boxes of 500. Again, we have them at $8.50 over spot while this special lasts. Finally, the Canadian silver maple is IRA eligible, and if you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. Our number for all orders is 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. And we're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're always glad to have this returning guest, and our viewers look forward to these weekly market updates with Miles Franklin CEO Andy Schectman. Andy, thanks for joining us this Tuesday, November 8th, 2022.
Good to be here. Doug, again, thanks for having me, my friend.
Having the Liberty and Finance weekly market update with you has become such a staple that people jump all over me. I get texts during the day, hey, what are you and Andy going to talk about today? I get emailed suggestion questions. Hey, remember to ask Andy this or ask Andy that. So it's become a centerpiece in people's life. As the world gets stranger and stranger, people look to something that's reliable and dependable that they can turn to for trustworthy information, and this is part of that. So thank you for being part of our weekly market update, and everybody's building their week around this, and so am I. So glad you're here.
I'm flattered. Thank you very much for the kind words. It means a lot to me. And I'm always happy to entertain questions because, really there's so much that I probably take for granted that people want to know about, like what we were talking about offline. And it's certainly my pleasure to do that. And glad to be here and glad I'm making just a little bit of a difference.
That's all I think any of us can do. Just try to make a difference, bloom where we're planted, and try to make the world a better place for where we are, because goodness knows we're going to need a lot of help going forward. The times are getting stranger, and we need to be there for each other. One of the things I just brought up to you right before we get started was something that is becoming increasingly frequent in my experience. Maybe I'm just hearing about it for the first time. It maybe have been going on at this frequency all along, and that is predatory practices by certain dealers that are really taking advantage of people, using non-competitive pricing and maybe taking people to the cleaners, frankly, and ending up with them being cut in half in terms of the amount of metals that they actually end up with in their IRA. And it's really becoming disturbing to me. It used to be maybe once a quarter I'd hear one of these stories from a client, because I always ask them, have you ever worked with Miles Franklin before? And then they tell me, well, I haven't worked with you, but here's what I did work with. And they start telling me their story. It's like, oh my gosh. There are some usual suspects that keep showing up in terms of names of dealers. I'm not going to mention them, but the thing that really sticks out to me are some of the practices, some of the telltale signs that I keep hearing about that give me such pain. Now it's getting to be once or twice a week. My wife is just, I come down and I go, oh, I heard another one of these stories today. And she goes, oh, what? And we talk about the latest, widow whose husband had set aside, a significant amount of money to help her take care of herself through her retirement, her significant medical needs, et cetera, like that. And then she with the help, quote unquote, help of one of these dealers, got it put into metals and at a tremendously high price. So she ended up with just a small fraction. If she were to do a buyback today, she'd end up with, less than half of what she started with just a few months ago, that kind of thing. And it's just becoming distressingly frequent. And I'd just like to talk about some of the recurring observations, but you've been in this business a lot longer than I have. Is this anything new or more frequent in your view, or is it just that it's coming to light because maybe I'm just getting exposed to it more right now?
No, I think it's become more and more pervasive. And if I had to make a blanket statement, it's almost entirely those companies that focus specifically upon IRAs, and they're very predatory. They tell half-truths or mistruths. They sell products that are difficult for the consumer to shop. And what I mean by that is that they'll often sell coins. And then the Royal Canadian Mint, as an example, is maybe the most prestigious mint in the world. They make the highest quality gold, the only 5.9, that's 99999 pure gold. They make those, and the kangaroos are predominantly the only 249 fine silver. They're high quality. They're, in my opinion, as good as it gets. But they also have a program where a company like mine, if I wanted to, I could, and I don't know I haven't looked into it for a while, but it's something to this extent whereby you can order specifically to your company, like pick an animal, call it like the gray wolf, the Canadian gray wolf. You could order it in an odd size, 3/4 of an ounce, 1 1/4 ounce, 1 1/2 ounce. Odd sizes meaning not something that the mint puts out on a regular basis for their own product line. And they will attribute that product specifically to you. You basically are the one who gets that product. You have exclusive on it. And I don't know how many millions of dollars worth you have to buy. It's a large commitment. But a lot of times that's what we will see. It's these 1 1/4 ounce coins, 1 1/2 ounce coins, 3/4 ounce coins, coins that are not as straightforward as a 1 ounce item that is easily shopped. Also, they'll talk about having to buy American Eagle proof coins, things like that, and say, well, you have to have American Eagle proof coins in the IRA in order for it to be acceptable. None of that is true. I guess if I had to make a blanket statement, it is typically the clients or the companies that are focusing specifically on IRAs. And the worst part about the predatory practice is that you're dealing with predominantly an older demographic who's not as savvy online, who's not comfortable going and searching for online companies and talking to people on online companies is really not something that's very easy to do to get your questions answered. But you're dealing with people's life savings, their retirement, and they are being put into very compromised positions where the items have very little liquidity. They're being sold for exponentially more and told, basically the pitch is the antithesis of mine. Mine is you buy gold and silver because it's wealth, not to get wealthy. These people are sold these items saying the profit potential is extraordinary and these collectibles and this and that. And 9.5 times out of 10, the people end up really in a bad position because the other companies out there like mine aren't as excited to buy those other coins that are specifically designed for a particular company who had them commissioned. Now, their name isn't on it or whatnot. They're not something that's very common. Now, the Canadian Mint has put out 1 1/2 ounce coins before, part of their product line, and those have much greater liquidity than a coin that was made for a specific online company that dedicated a good sum of money to make or commission a run that they basically have the only supply of. I know what I'm saying is a little bit confusing, but the bottom line is simply this. It is almost entirely centered on companies focusing specifically on IRAs, and it's a different kind of scumbag in that they're being predatory to elderly folks who are trusting their life savings on a half-truth, a mistruth, or a complete flat-out lie, and being charged in most cases many times what they should be paying. I see the same horror stories that you see, and it certainly is a sense or is a source of aggravation for me, but certainly nowhere near the amount of aggravation and distress that it puts upon those people that fall victim to it.
There's so many parts to this. What you just mentioned is the personal pain it inflicts. I mean, this is real people. These are their life savings. These are their nest eggs. In some cases, it really is widows. And I know that Scripture is very, very clear about protecting the widow and the orphan. That is number one. And so it just lights a fire down in me that's very keeps getting flared up every time I hear one of these stories, is that sort of righteous anger at people who would intentionally, by design, build their business practice around this. I had been aware for a couple of years of a company that was particularly high profile that pitched rarities and antiquities and things like that because they said, oh, this is what the wealthy people are accumulating, so you should do what the wealthy people are doing, and that kind of thing. And that was one particular company. And it was Catherine Austin Fitz who told me, I won't come back on your channel if you deal with that company. And I didn't know. I had to find out more about it. So I checked into it and found out, wow, she was right. And one of the things that was so surprising is these companies have like high, triple, A plus, Better Business Bureau ratings and that kind of stuff. And we even hear from the clients, gee, the person I was talking with seemed so trustworthy, even though they were being kind of pushy. That usually comes out. They were being kind of pushy, trying to get me to move through this. Another thing that they talk about, and again, what you talk about, these oddball products that are getting pushed, these ounce and 1.25 ounce silver coins. One of them was from the St. Helena, island of St. Helena, sovereigns, boxes of 320, quantities 20, and so on. These ounce and a quarter coins have come up in two of those examples. Another one was the premiums. I mean, we've all been shocked over the past 2 years. We've all been shocked at higher premiums than we've seen in our, you say in your entire career, and most people who've been long-term stackers tell me the same thing. These are higher premiums than they've ever seen. But that ain't nothing. I mean, the lady I talked with today, they were charging at least 20% higher premiums than any competitive dealer would. The lady I spoke with last week, they were charging at least 55% higher premiums than anywhere else. And the one I spoke with about 3 weeks ago, who's still fighting the company to try to get her money out of them, they were charging over 250% higher premiums than was competitive. And those are some of the things. The other thing that's very distressing is these high, glitzy, glamorous ads and celebrity spokespeople. I mean, very well-known celebrity spokespeople saying, I trust only this company I buy all my gold from this company. I was just, I feel betrayed. And I don't know what to do to help these people other than to tell them that is not a competitive pricing and those are not ordinary products. And they, even a couple of these people challenged even up to getting the head of the company on the line when they were resisting making their purchase, saying, I don't think that's a competitive price. And they got told, oh, but we have such fine purity in this coin and it comes directly from the mint. And it's like, yeah, so does every bullion coin that you buy directly from a reputable dealer who's getting it straight from the mint. So anyway, there's a lot, like you said, half-truths, things that people are being told to try to just lull them into believing that they're not being taken when they are being taken.
Well, remember that it's a federally non-regulated industry, and so there's not a lot of oversight. There's really no other way to say it. That these companies are very much scumbag, and they, also you'll find very often will recommend modern minted graded coins, MS69, MS70, first strike, early release, all this nonsense. That's like putting lipstick on a pig. All of the modern coins are certified, are high grade MS69, MS70 right out the door, out the mint. To have them certified is like grading brand new common baseball cards. And I've talked about this before. You look at the old tobacco cards from 1906, 7, 8, and 9 as an example, or the early Topps cards in the early 50s. Kids didn't know to take care of baseball cards and they put them in their bike spokes. The people who were chewing tobacco in 1909 didn't really know much, what to do with these baseball cards that were in it. So most of them, those that you can find, they need to be certified. In fact, there's a company called PSA, which is an offshoot to PCGS, Collectors Universe, and they certify baseball cards. And I built a world-class baseball card collection through my business, and they're all certified. And they're all a minimum of 70 years old or older, some of them over 120 years old. And so you end up having to have baseball cards from that era certified. But the coins, and if you make a contrast to the coins behind me, on the wall here that are certified. These are old coins that were used as legal tender. No one knew to take good care of them. So you certify them as rarities. The modern minted stuff, you would never certify a brand new, open up a pack of baseball cards and certify them all. It's a waste of money. All the same waste of money as opening up a brand new box of Gold Eagles and certifying them. And so what? So they're early release, big deal. That's a whole lot of nothing on a scumbag lying salad. And then you talk about MS-70. Okay, it's worth a little bit more. It's a perfect example of a coin, but so what? What I'm getting at is if you're going to buy something that is considered collectible or worthy of certification, it should truly be that. It should be old. It should be numismatic. It should have rarity value, not something brand new. And that's kind of also something that you'll see very commonly in companies that are taking advantage of the public. None of it to the same degree as those companies that specifically focus on IRAs. So people who are looking for IRAs, they need to talk to a company like Miles Franklin just to make sure that what they are being told is accurate. There's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion on the product and on the pricing. And, to me, it's very... Setting up an IRA, it's very specific on how you want to do it. And you want to get things that are very liquid, that are very sought after, and you want to get as many ounces as you possibly can while not being penny wise and pound foolish. And there are ways to do it. But to buy coins that will hopefully make you wealthy because they're rare and they're pure and all of that is nonsense. Number one, that's not why you buy gold and silver. And number two, any of those coins that fit this particular model more often than not will have a diminished liquidity just because they're not something that people are typically aware of or inclined to purchase. And even when you bring it up to them, hey, I got these unusual 1 1/4 ounce coins, at least my clients, they'll say, oh, you know what, I'm going to stick with something a little bit more mainstream, and rightfully so. Because when we get those coins in, we'll sell them at a discount, not at a premium. And it's companies selling them as a premium and promising things that, really are flat out not true or lies or misleading, to say the least. It's something, unfortunately, that we see over and over and over again.
I wanted to underscore one thing you mentioned there, and that is that the list of what is IRA approved or IRA acceptable is really pretty simple. There are just a few things that are excluded because of their purity if they're not from the U.S. Mint, but usually it's just a matter of purity is the main requirement. And if anybody wants to be, we can email you the list of what's IRA approved. We'll send you a link to that. It's really pretty straightforward. So there is no fancy magic to this, having to have something special in order for it to be IRA eligible. There are some rules, but they're very simple, very straightforward. We're happy to send you that. If you want to email us, libertyandfinance@protonmail.com, just put IRA info in the title. We'll send you some information about that. But I guess I just, any suggestions for, okay, so the main suggestion is if you're talking to a dealer and they're trying to talk you into a particular type of product, rather than you just saying, look, I want what's going to be the most commonly recognized at the most reasonable price.
That's warning bell number one. No, this is what you want. That's warning bell number one. And warning bell number 1A, you're talking to a company that specifically focuses on IRAs. And in almost every instance, they're the culprits. And I could name them right now. I'd really like to, because, again, they're nothing but scumbags. And the worst part about it is they know it. I don't know how a guy or a gal who completely fleeces someone goes home and sleeps at night. It's crazy to me, but almost entirely companies that specifically focus on IRAs. And if that is a company you found yourself dealing with, give us a call. Talk to us about it. We will be completely open and transparent. I am not in the business of poaching clients from other companies. There are a lot of good companies out there. We're one of them, and there are others. There's also a lot of companies out there that, because this is an industry that's non-regulated, use that to their advantage and find ways of extracting as much money, justified or not, from the public, and very often being deceitful in the way that they're doing it. And I wish there was a nicer way to say this, but there isn't, because typically when you run across one of these clients, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, the carnage is just absolute. The carnage is just insanity, where, you know, these people have lost 75% of their value in a year, and the price of metals has gone up. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we see, and that's the kind of stigma that I've really had to fight for a very long time as the owner of a metals company, because there are a lot of people out there who have done irreparable harm. You'll often talk to people who will say things like that to me. Yeah, you know, I was taken a decade ago with numismatics, or I was really ripped off. There are companies out there that will do that. And that's why one of the things that I harp on so much is our licensing and our accreditation and our US Mint accreditation and our, you know, all of the things that make us who we are. It's not to pat myself on the back. It's the fact that this is an industry that lacks oversight. And when you're trying to earn someone's trust, you have to start from a base level. And that base level is one that we feel we've earned. And unfortunately, there are a lot of companies out there who have enough money to hire, you know, fancy, glitzy ex-actor or actress,
celebrity spokespersons, yeah,
right, and or have enough money to make a fancy website or fancy brochures or whatever it may be that look authentic enough. Here I am. We're a company that's done almost $8 billion in business with the crappiest website on the planet, and I keep telling people it's going to be done soon, and it is. But it's not about the glitzy website. It's not about any of that stuff. It's about reputation. And so, you know, I don't know if there's an easy way to do it other than to say, get a second opinion. And that if you've gone down this road with companies that are focusing directly, specifically on IRAs, get a second opinion before you pull the trigger. If you already have, there are ways to remedy it, although they're not as certain as one would think. There is the old adage, these companies don't want to drink their own bathwater. So if you get nasty enough with them and threaten them enough, chances are they'll work some sort of a remediation for you. But I don't know. I would just simply say, unfortunately, this is something that is a problem, shall we say, in this industry. And I don't think it's going away really anytime soon, as more and more people are waking up to the benefits of owning gold and silver.
Well, I guess it gets back to one of the things you talked about trusting your gut. If you start to feel like you're getting a sales pitch, if you start to feel like you're getting sold, or you're getting shepherded or guided into a particular shoot, or being told things that don't seem to quite square with what you thought going into it, or if you've done some competitive shopping before you even talk to those people, so you know what the price ranges should be out there in the open marketplace, and then now they're showing you prices that are, and it's tough because a lot of these people aren't math whizzes, these clients, and they're getting told these 1.25 ounces, and it kind of muddies the water rather than straight up 1 ounce products, that sort of thing.
It's the same reason that a lot of these companies will focus on the British sovereign and the French and Swiss franc. You'll notice a common theme. Those companies that do that will sell the British sovereign because it's 0.2354 of an ounce, and the Swiss franc and the French franc 0.1867. I mean, I know this because I've been doing this for, you know, since the dawn of time. That's about a fifth of an ounce, just right around a fifth of an ounce on the francs, and right around a quarter of an ounce on the sovereigns. They're all old. They're prior to 1933. And they'll say, well, these are safe from confiscation because they're historical pre-33, but the executive order says pre-33 U.S. minted. They leave that part out. And because you can't easily figure out the 0.2354 or the 0.1867 instead of a quarter ounce or a tenth of an ounce or a half of an ounce, as a lot of these modern coins are, it allows them to make a few bucks more per coin, but on a per ounce basis, that works out to a tremendous amount. They make an extra $8 on a point, you know, on a 0.1867 coin. Well, that's $40 an ounce roughly that they're making extra because it's a fifth of an ounce. People aren't figuring this stuff out because of the mathematics, because of the age, because of the half truths, because of the fancy website, because of the slick talking, and it's really gross. And unfortunately, you know, they will ensnarl people because they're good at it. But again, second opinion, make sure that you're getting charged the right price. And sometimes a simple Google search would do the job. But yeah, it's a bummer. It really is. But those are typically the things that you see: the fractional silver coins, the fractional pre-33 foreign gold coins that are given a significance that is not true, the modern minted certified coins, and the companies that are just focusing on IRAs. That is kind of the litany, if you will, of at least if I were going to make a company that was going to screw the public, that's what I would do, because that's what I see all these companies doing with great success. And it's really gross. I would love nothing more than to name the 4 or 5 companies that are just sitting on the tip of my tongue. But I've learned that's not the way to do things in this industry. And people will unfortunately have to do a little bit of digging to figure this out for themselves. I think I've laid enough breadcrumbs out there for them to maybe figure things out without throwing a spear at someone here online.
I guess another thing people can rely on or fall back to help from is the Better Business Bureau and the Attorney General in their state or in the state of the company where the company is doing business, if they feel like they really have been done wrong with non-competitive or predatory business practices.
Well, that's what I was talking about in terms of a remedy. I mean, if you really are serious about it, that's where you go. You go to the top and you don't screw around, and you say, you got one chance to make this right. And because here's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to go to the Department of Commerce, the Commissioner of Commerce, the Better Business Bureau, the Attorney General in your state, and on and on and on, and going to let the world know that you guys are lying scumbags. And that is the way to start. And I think any business owner in any business that heard something like that would do what they could, maybe move heaven and earth to make it right. And I've helped people fix things that kind of fell down this pathway. And it usually works with fairly decent results, but not always. And to some degree, it's buyer beware. Take a little bit of accountability, and don't be so spontaneous. Get a second opinion, get a second price. Just make sure that that what you're being given from this company in terms of information is consistent along the whole industry, and not just something in terms of product or pricing or information that is specific to this one company who is just selling you IRAs. Now, as a footnote, the old European coins would not be inside of an IRA. So that's how they get you outside the IRA. Talk about confiscation, talk about, well, here's a great way to have fractionality, no threats of confiscation because they're pre-33 and they're old. And yeah, it's all a bunch of crap and a bunch of lies. So, we're always willing. I know you are, I am, and everyone at Miles Franklin and Liberty and Finance, who are all willing to help people through this. And, unfortunately, there's really no easy way to, or black and white answer to this, other than to just get your dauber up and pay attention, and hopefully you give us a call along the way.
Well, thanks for dealing with that painful topic. I don't know that the pain's going to get any worse, because now I'm hearing these stories twice a week rather than once a quarter. But I guess hopefully from people watching this, they'll get the news in time to prevent getting made victims by predatory practices, or if they feel like they're fallen into that, they'll seek some remedy, because they really deserve to be treated fairly. So, all right. Now I haven't even let you introduce a topic, your latest research, anything you want to tell us before the weekly market update and weekly market special.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. We saw an article by Reuters this week talking about the fact that central banks around the world bought a record 399 tons of gold, around 20 billion in the third quarter, which is 340% higher than Q3 2021 and almost double the previous record of 241 tons in Q3 2018. And this marks the 8th consecutive quarter of net purchases by the world's central banks. Year to date, 673 tons, higher than any full year, and we're not even done with the year here yet, since 1967. We've talked about the BRICS countries, and that's really been my focus for quite some time. And and you can add Saudi Arabia to this mix now too, since they have said they're going to join, and Turkey. But we've talked about how they're looking to move away from the West to build their own economies, and they have all of the oil and the productive capacity, and they're the ones maybe who have buying all the gold. And if we look at what Bloomberg said when they commented on this article, they talked about these mystery whales, right? And they postulated that the mystery buyers were likely either China, Russia, Saudi Arabia, or India. Now, where do those names sound familiar? Oh, yeah, the BRICS countries talked about that. And Bloomberg said that this is nearly double the previous record. And so are these the same countries that said they have hopes of creating a global reserve currency to challenge the dollar? Oh, that's right, they are. And so when you talk about the fact that more gold has been bought by the central bank since 1967 or any time since 1967, it's getting really crazy. But it gets even crazier. My buddy, Ronan Manley, we call him Ronan the Destroyer Manley, wrote an article about this that I find incredibly interesting. And he dug deep into it, and he said the World Gold Council came up with these numbers, these 399 tons, are made up of 119 tons that were reported purchases, and 280 tons they call unreported purchases. Now, I'm going to ask you, Dunnigan, what the hell is an unreported purchase? And, let's think about this for a minute. On one hand, they say that, you have a combination of these steady reported purchases by central banks like Turkey, who has bought more gold the first half of the year than any country on the planet. They talk about unreported buying not being too uncommon, and not all official institutions publicly report their gold holdings, right? Well, an example would be China. They hardly ever update their gold holdings, yet we know they're massively accumulating and producing it. Or Saudi Arabia, who has more gold than any country in the Arab world, but haven't updated their official numbers since 2010. Or more ominously, maybe the mystery are these tuned in players like the others that we've talked about, who know that something is coming, and maybe they've been clued in to what's coming down the pike, but to the point where they can tell us that 2/3 of these massive gold purchases, which they believe to be central banks, are unreported, is very unusual to me. And I think it makes great sense when we talk about the draining of the exchanges. By who and where's it going? We should talk a little bit about, of course, the supply. The LBMA vaults are contracting sharply. We've talked about that. The total amount of silver in the LBMA vaults right now, not pledged to ETFs, is somewhere around 300 million ounces. And we saw in earlier this year, I think it was maybe September, about 46 million ounces were drained off the LBMA. And if you continue to see that type of delivering, we could see the entire LBMA stash depleted by mid-2023. This is no joke. And what about the COMEX? I've been talking a lot about the COMEX seeing its supply drain. The stockpile, the registered stockpile, is at its lowest level since 2016. Now, that's when they started keeping records. And it's drained by over 70% in the last 18 months to just under 36 million ounces, or about 7,100 COMEX contracts. That's it. That is it. Now, what about the eligible silver that's in the vaults too? In theory, I guess that could be made registered, but most of that silver is held by hands that have no interest in selling now or maybe down the road. But even if you add the eligible into the registered, we're still almost 2.5 or 250% more paper than there is bars in the system. This is a very, very, very ominous sign when you talk about massive drawdowns, massive accumulation, not even knowing who's buying it all. We do know, obviously, by those numbers that we can see, that China has been importing a ton. India has been importing a ton. A lot of the Eurasian countries, a lot of the BRICS nations have been importing a ton, but still 2/3 of what is reported as being accumulated is unreported, which is strange. Last time I was on your show, I talked about this new M Bridge, I think it's called the M Bridge, which was the Bank of International Settlements came out and told all of the world central banks that by 2025 they have to have a central bank digital currency. And we talked about the M Bridge, which is a platform based on a new blockchain ledger that was built by central banks to support real-time peer-to-peer cross-border payments and foreign exchange transactions using central bank digital currencies. Now, I talked about that with you last week, and the only part that I really mentioned or clung to is that the BIS said, yeah, everyone has to have this. Every central bank has to have it by 2025. And I thought, well, maybe there needs to be some sort of major crisis to usher this in. Well, just the other day I read, last month, China successfully completed a 40-day trial using its digital currency to settle cross-border transactions with Hong Kong, Thailand, and the United Arab Emirates. The trial processed over 160 payments worth 22 million, all in real time. All of these transactions sidestep the SWIFT system. Well, maybe that is why this M-Bridge thing is so important. These transactions, every single one of them came through the MCBDC bridge that was made by China. And it was part of the digital yuan test simulating direct transactions between China and its partners without dollar-denominated correspondent banking. In other words, how did we sanction Russia? Oh, yeah, we kicked them out of SWIFT. What did that do to everyone else? Freaked them out. What did that do to countries like China? Found a back door. Here's your back door. And in fact, after the successful test, Russia just announced that they would begin tests using the digital ruble and yuan to settle transactions with China. And my question to you and everyone out there, does this sound similar to what I've been saying for a long time? And is this the beginning of a new commodity-backed reserve currency that we were just told by the BRICS is coming? I would argue it is. And, the article goes on to talk about that it can reduce cross-border transactions and expedite them where you don't have to wait a day or two for a wire. It shows up like that, like you transacted Bitcoin. But even more important, it undercuts the dollar and its correspondent banks. In other words, you don't need the SWIFT any longer to transact business, and the tool of the sanctions is now rendered invalid. And so this is a really big deal. And you had the Central Bank of Indonesia that came out after all of this happened. They were part of this deal, these trades, and they came out and they said that consumers across 5 Southeast Asia's largest economies will soon be able to make intra-regional cross-border payments via linkages that avoid using the dollar as an intermediary, as is currently often the only case. This is scary. One other thing I'd like to mention. Now, I don't know this to be true. Anytime we see the price of gold and silver spike like it did today, I look around to find, are there any stories that could lead to, clues as to what created the spike? I would often think, well, could this just be one of these managed money short positions that just capitulated and covered? Certainly it could be. And you'll see more vicious spikes upward like this as that continues to happen. And I think that is the bear trap that the commercial banks have set for the managed money. And some of them are getting wise in this environment and bailing quickly before it becomes impossible to bail. But right before the price popped, there was an article today in Bloomberg, and it was just before the rally in precious metals. And it basically was a red alert as President Xi says China is to prepare for war and warns world order is on the brink of collapse in chilling escalation. Xi Jinping has ordered China to prepare for war as he warned his nation's security is increasingly unstable And in a chilling escalation, the Chinese dictator declared that Beijing will comprehensively strengthen its military training in preparation for any war. You know, do they have their eyes set on Taiwan? I would say they do. Is that why they've been dumping U.S. treasuries for the last 8 months? I would say that's why they are. Is that why they are building alliances all around the globe, sidestepping the dollar in energy and in unilateral trades? I would say that's why they are. And so these things are beginning to speed up and escalate. And I think it's you know, the old saying, may you live in interesting times. That's a Chinese curse. These are anything but dull and complacent. And if you're not beginning to see this in what's happening behind the scenes, you're not paying close enough attention. The only other piece I would like to bring up is simply this. You know, I have said for quite some time that I didn't think that Powell would want to be written about in history books, that Powell, even though, you know, the only thing that always stuck in the back of my mind is, well, he talks about his hero being Paul Volcker. Paul Volcker raised rates to 19.75%, blew up the economy, but stopped inflation in its tracks. But I thought, yeah, but he doesn't want to be the one to blow all this up. But I'm beginning to wonder, am I right about that or not? Because, you know, when I think about what's going on with inflation, it makes me think that this isn't roaring inflation that we would expect to see, like they saw, well, in hyperinflation, where everything is inflating. This to me has been more like a constant amount of demand, not outrageous demand, but constant demand that has been met with lack of product, with supply chain distortions, where when we moved to Florida, it took 7 months to get a couch, where we redid our kitchen, it took 5 months to get a refrigerator, where my daughter got into a car accident the first day of school last year in September, it took 6 months to get two headlights and a fender. And so my question is, you know, raising rates is not going to fix this. Right? Raising rates is only going to blow up the economy. And what I'm wondering is, do they realize this is the case? Does the Fed and the central banks of the world realize that rate hikes can only really stop inflation if they completely and totally blow up the economy so that there's no demand whatsoever? Because you got to ask yourself, we're getting to that point right now where the rising of rates, or the raising of rates, is beginning to do some real damage. Look at the real estate market. Look at the price of houses. They're collapsing. Look what's happening with the used car market. They were through the roof, and now they are collapsing at the fastest pace ever because no one can afford these high buck car loans. And now you're going to get a whole bunch of cars also on the market. People leased them at the beginning of the pandemic, haven't driven them, and their 3-year leases are about to expire just as rates are going to the moon. And so we're entering a period of time where you're seeing literally industries being destroyed by the rising of rates, and we're nowhere near really the level of inflation. And I don't know what the fix is other than to get the supply chains working again. But it just makes me stop and think for a moment. Does the Fed not see what they are about to do as they continue to raise by 75, by 75? That takes out of the picture everything I've talked about the dollar being dumped and what will happen to rates then. But I'm talking about what the Fed is doing. And I have to wonder, is this their plan? Is their plan, and in Europe, just to blow up the world's economies, to stop demand altogether as their fix on inflation? Because I think that raising rates is not doing a damn thing for inflation. All it is really doing is starting to really crack the economy. And I think only time will tell. But I truly believe it is time for people to get serious and about protecting themselves, about buckling up, because whether it be here at home with the stupid decisions our politicians make and have made, how President Biden get up on stage and say, there will be no more drilling. I'm not drilling, no drilling. And yet we go to Saudi Arabia and Venezuela and beg for oil as gas, and as we're depleting the strategic reserve, as diesel's at its lowest level since the 40s. I mean, it's just, you can't make stupidity up the way that we are. And I think it's now getting to the point where we're getting to the 11th, maybe close to the 12th hour. And the stupidity just keeps on going. But when you see the price of gold and silver spike like they did today, for no apparent reason, yet an article that comes out 5 minutes before on Bloomberg saying China's preparing for war, and we've already publicly said we will defend Taiwan. I mean, things are getting to a point right now where profit should not be people's motivation. And going back to what we said earlier on IRAs, this is about buckling up. You know, there's supposedly a hurricane coming here again in the next 2 days. It's probably going to miss where I am down here in Delray Beach, but it's close. And this is not the time to go set out your lawn furniture and open up your umbrella. It's the time to tighten it up, buckle it up, push it up against the house, and wrap them up with bungee cords and hope they don't blow through my hurricane-proof windows. That's what everyone needs to be thinking right now. And I know it's hard to do when we have grown up in a country that allows us to have a birthright of living better than our parents did and think that hope springs eternal. But I don't know. I'm real concerned, Dunnigan, more so than I've ever been, honest to God.
We appreciate always these updates and research. You know, you've got so much awareness, your ear to the ground in many areas that most of us aren't even aware of. So appreciate that very much on behalf of our viewers. And before I let you get out of here, we got to get a weekly special if we can.
Yeah, so I bought a very large hoard of silver maple leafs, as many as I could get. And I will have all of them in starting early next week. I was able to secure about 100,000 of them. And these high premiums do bring some coins out into the marketplace. And we have to pay high premiums to buy them from the public. So they are being sold for high premiums to the public. It goes both ways. Again, you know, if you're looking for 1 ounce coins, they're continuing to go through the roof, all of them. And it was just the Eagle for the last year and a half. Now it's the Kangaroo, the Kruger, and the Philharmonic, the Britannia. They're all north of $7 and $8, all of them. We have silver maples in mint boxes for immediate delivery. They'll be in next week, Tuesday, but immediate delivery and close enough in terms of immediate. And they are $8.50 above the price of silver per ounce. It's a high premium, but I will say this, it's barely above the Britannia, the Philharmonic, the Kangaroo, and the Kruger, and the maple has been a couple dollars higher than all of those coins for the past 6 months. Now they're 50 cents away, 75 cents away. It's a good buy if you're looking for sovereign mint coins. In fact, it's as good of a buy, I think, as any of the sovereign mint coins you can buy right now. And I'll caveat it by saying this is why I've been focusing on bars, because you get a bigger bang for the buck in 10 ounce and kilo and 100 ounce bars. But for people who want coins, you won't find a better price anywhere in the country on these maple leafs. And if you're looking to add some sovereign coins to your stash, this is what I would be buying.
And let me clarify two things. One is you said they'll be in next week, so that's the week of November 14th through 18th is when they'll be coming in.
Yeah, they're already on a truck on their way to us, is what I was told. So they should be in my warehouse Monday or Tuesday.
All right. And then secondly, are these backdated random years?
Yeah, I don't know what years they are. I do know they're not 2022 or 2023.
Okay. All right. Well, Andy, appreciate that. And folks, check into that if that fits the bill for you and your family. Always, Andy, as always, on behalf of all our viewers, thanks for joining us on Liberty and Finance for these weekly market updates.
Pleasure is mine, Dunnigan. Everyone stay well. We'll see you next week.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability. and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.